see. With this, I'm going to jump into my expertise, which is cultivated meat. So I'm basically a food technologist who'd been working in flavor industries, and then I entered into cultivated meat space with Shiok Meats. It was a very initial stage where Shiok wanted to isolate stem cells from crustacean meat, which is from shrimp, crab, and lobster, and other crustaceans. It was a really interesting journey because it's the first time where myself, being a food technologist, worked alongside with stem cell scientists and bioprocess engineers. And this is the first time ever where two industries have come in. In the coming slides, I will be sharing more details on what are the roles, or what is cultivated meat, and how will you guys fit into it. So this is a brief overview of what cultivated meat is. Cultivated meat is actually, how we explain to a layman is that we just compare it to more of a greenhouse plant. As similar to that, you just isolate a stem cell from a particular animal, may it be a red meat or chicken, or it can be from seafood, sea animals. And then once you isolate, you stabilize that particular cell, proliferate them, providing them the right nutrients and the right environment. And then once they're proliferated, they're shifted into bioreactors, which is perfectly suitable for that particular mass of cells. And further in bioreactors, they're scaled up. And once they're scaled up, they are differentiated to form muscle fibers. And these muscle fibers are nothing but mimicking of that of meat. And further to it, you have the liquid, which is the nutrient media, which is nothing but the byproduct. And later to it, that particular mixture is separated using, say, centrifuge or a separator, and the meat is separated from the byproduct. Further to it, the meat has been processed. Till date, you can see, if you guys are very much known in this market, Just Eat, I'm just typing it in the chat box. Just Eat and Upside Foods are the two companies ever in the world who's got approval. Just Eat has actually got approval in Singapore, and in USA they've got an FDA approval, and Upside Foods have got an FDA approval as well. But there are more than 50 plus companies in the world who's working hard in cell-based meat. If you browse and see, there are companies who are making cell-based fat as well, or cell-based more of flavor. There are more companies in that sense. Now, these are the departments in cultivated meat space. Why I highlighted is that, as I mentioned, this is the first time ever two industries come together, which is biopharma industry and food tech industry. And one, I think with the slide which I gave, with this particular slide, I don't think you guys would have understood what are the actual departments. So I wanted to break down to give a clear understanding of what actually are the departments in a cultivated meat space. So as mentioned, the first step is to isolate stem cells. So the key department is stem cell isolation, where the things involved into it is identifying a star or cell banking, the star cell lines, which is responsible for providing that particular cell-based meat. Then standardizing the isolation procedures, SOPs, and for scalability, and identifying the efficient part of that animal for isolation. Say, for example, in chicken, it's a mammalian cell. So it's a mammalian. So when you isolate a particular cell from chicken, it doesn't mean that that particular cell has to be a stem cell. A chicken cells is very complex. It does have connective, nervous, and muscle tissues. So one has to identify the right part to get the right star cell line. But when you look into lower animals, say, for example, shrimp or prawn, they do not have a very complex connective tissue. Most of the prawn, if you see, it's 90% is made of just muscle meat, and some has and there's a very fine layer of cholesterol in it as well. So it's much better to isolate, but at the same time, it's difficult because it's a primitive organism. So all this is studied under stem cell department. Then is the media development department. As I mentioned, only for the past 5 years, this particular stream in food tech has emerged. Previously, stem cell technology was used in regenerative medicine. So most of the nutrient media used to grow the cells is pharmaceutical grade. So the challenges which every cultivated meat company is facing is they're finding alternatives for these pharmaceutical grade ingredients to make it food grade. So that's the role of a media scientist or a fermentation scientist. So students or people who are expertise in fermentation or in media development or in understanding the nutrient balance of how it works with the cell or in an intricate level for a cellular, their role plays a very important role in media development department. Then comes the bioprocess department. Once the cells grow in this nutrient media, they proliferate. And for scalability, they have to be fed into bioreactors. Bioreactors, it needs to be scaled, say, from 2 liters to 10 liters to 200 liters, because the target of this industry is to feed people and population, right? And with they say that with 2030, your population is going to be double. So bioprocess team main target is to scale this particular concept or this particular technology in a very scalable manner and have the particular form of meat be separated out. So bioprocess engineers, research engineers, they play an important role in this department. Then comes the food tech department. Once the meat and the byproducts are out, this meat has to be further processed. Say, for example, if it's chicken meat, it has to be further processed into a chicken nugget or a chicken patty, and it needs to be blended with the right nutrients, or if there's any flavors to be added, mincing it, packaging it, sterilization, all this comes under food tech department. They are not able to unmute. Then you can just text here if you have any doubts. Okay, so the two companies I mentioned who got approval is Just Eat and Upside Foods. You can note that down. That's what I had pinged. Yeah. So this is actually the overall process flow in a cultivated meat company. Isolation of stem cells, which involves isolation of stem cells and identified star cell lines, and then growing the cells in nutrient-rich media, which is a food-grade nutrient-rich media, optimizing isolation protocols, then proliferation, where scale-up in bioreactors happen, separation, where effective separation of this meat and liquid takes place, and then downstream processing. So you can have a screenshot of this. Now, I think this is my last slides. So I had actually shared about opportunities in food industry in general. Now I'm sharing opportunities in food industry, including cultivated meat space, because I want to highlight on opportunities what a biotech person or a genomic person or a microbiologist or a marine biotechnologist can get in. So the one in the right side is actually general food tech positions. The one in the left where I've highlighted in green are specific roles which can be suitable for your expertise when you're coming from biotech background, which is research specialist, which is actually a generalist who will be involved in isolation, who will be involved in preliminary works of media development for understanding which star cell line and learning in depth on the characterization or the characteristics of the particular cell which has been isolated. Then a stem cell scientist whose main role is isolation, setting up isolation protocol, getting the right cell for the cell-based meat industry. Then is molecular biologist. Then is media formulation scientist, as I mentioned earlier. Then fermentation scientist, bioprocess engineers, research scientists, again, who are involved in characterization of that particular cell, and operation engineer. So these are the roles which is very much prominent now in cultivated meat space.